I sang of quiet Achille, Afolabi's son, who never ascended in an elevator, who had no passport since the horizon needs none, never begged nor borrowed, was nobody's waiter, whose end when it comes will be a death by water, which is not for this book, which will remain unknown and unread by him. I sang the only slaughter that brought him delight, and that from necessity of fish, sang the channels of his back in the sun. I sang our wide country, the Caribbean Sea, who hated shoes, whose soles were as cracked as a stone, who was gentle with ropes, who had one suit alone, whom no man dared insult, and who insulted no one, whose grin was a white breaker cresting, but whose frown was a growing thunderhead, whose fist of iron would do me a greater honor if it held on in my casket's oarlocks than mine lifting his own when both anchors are lowered in the one island. But now the idyll dies, the goblet is broken, and rainwater trickles down the broken cheek of a jar from the clay of Choiseul. So much left unspoken by my chirping nib, and my earth door lies ajar. I lie wrapped in a flour sack sail, the clods thud on my rope-lowered canoe. Rasping shovels scrape a dry rain of dirt on its hold. But turn your head when the sea almond rattles, or the rust-leaved grape from the shells of my unpharaonic pyramid, towards paper shredded by the wind and scattered like a white gull that separates their names from the foam, and nod to a fisherman with his khaki dog that skitters from the wave crash, then frown at his form for one swift second. In its earth trough, my pirogue with its brass-handled oarlocks is sailing, not from, but with them, with Hector, with Maud, in the rhythm of her heads travelled over, with a swirling log lifting its masthead from the swell. Let the deep hymn of the Caribbean continue my epilogue. May waves remove their shawls as my mourners walk home to their rustic villages, good shoes in one hand, passing a boy who walked through the ignorant foam and saw a sail going out or else coming in, and watched asterisks of rain puckering the sand. You can see Helen at the house here. She is dressed in the national costume, white low-cut bodice with frilled lace at the collar, just a cleft of her breast for the customers when she places their orders on the shields of the tables. They can guess the rest under the madras skirt with its golden borders and the flirtatious knot of the madras head tie. She pauses between the tables, holding a tray over her stomach to hide the wave-rounded sigh of her pregnancy. There is something too remote about her stillness. Women study her beauty, but turn their faces away if their eyes should meet, like an ebony carving. But if she should swerve that silhouette hammered out of the sea's metal, like a profile on a shield, its sinuous neck lolling like a palm's, you might recall that battle for which they named an island, or the heaving wreck of the Ville de Paris in her foam-frilled bodice, or just think, what a fine local woman. And her head will turn when you snap your fingers, the slow eyes approaching you with the leisure of a panther through white tables with palm green iron umbrellas, past children wading with water wings in the pool, and Africa strides, not alabaster Hellas, and half the world lies open to show its black pearl. She waits for your order, and you lower your eyes away from her, that have never carried the spoil of Troy, that never betrayed horned Menelaus, or netted Agamemnon in their irises. But the name Helen had gripped my wrist in its twine to plunge it into the foaming page. For 3 years, phantom era, I kept wondering to a voice hoarse as winter's echo in the throat of a vase. Like Philoctet's wound, this language carries its cure, its radiant affliction. Reluctantly now, like Achilles, my craft slips the chain of its anchor, moored to its cross as I leave it, its nodding prow lettered as simply, ribbed in our native timber. riding these last worried lines. Its rhythm a breeze that all it forgot, a swift made it remember, since that green sunrise of axes and laurel trees, till the sunset chars it slowly to an ember. And Achille himself had been one of those children whose voices are surf under a galvanized roof, sheep bleating in the schoolyard, the Caribbean whose woolly crests were the backs of the Cyclops flock, with the smart man under one's belly. Blue stories we recited as children, lifted with the rock of Polyphemus. From a plaster Omeros, the smoke and scars of mares' tails continually chalked associate phantoms across our own sky. Out of their element, the thrashing mackerel thudded, silver, then leaden. The vermilion scales of snappers faded like sunset. The wet, mossed coral sea fans that winnowed weeds in the wiry water stiffened to bony lace, and the dripping tendrils of an octopus wrung its hands at the slaughter from the gutting knives. Achille unstitched the entrails and buried them in the sand with the palm-ribbed mongrels and soaring flies. As skittish as hyenas, the dogs trotted, then paused, angling their muzzles sideways to gnaw on trembling legs, then lift a nose at more scavengers. A triumphant Achilles, his hands gloved in blood, moved to the other canoes whose hulls were thumping with fishes. In the spread seine, the silvery mackerel multiplied the noise of coins in a basin. The copper scales swaying were balanced by one iron tear. Then there was peace. They washed their short knives. They wrapped the flower-backed sails. Then they helped him haul in God we troused back in place, jamming logs under its keel. He felt his muscles unknotting like rope. The nets were closing their eyes, sagging on bamboo poles near the concrete depot. In the sandy rough trough, aching Achilles washed sand from his heels, then tightened the brass spigot to its last drop. An immense lilac emptiness settled the sea. He sniffed his name in one armpit. He scraped dry scales off his hands. He liked the odors of the sea in him. Night was fanning his coal pot from one catching star. The no-pain lit its doors in the village. Achille put the wedge of dolphin that he'd saved for Helen in Hector's rusty tin. A full moon shone like a slice of raw onion. When he left the beach, the sea was still going on.